The night didn't get quieter. It got heavier. After the words of truth settled in Daniel's chest, there was a brief moment where everything felt stable, like the storm had finally lost its direction. But darkness never accepts defeat easily. It studies. It adapts. And then it returns with something more precise. This time, it wasn't attacking his thoughts directly. It was attacking his expectations. Daniel started noticing it in small ways. A delay in answers he had been praying for. A door that didn't open. A conversation that went wrong for no clear reason. And slowly, the whisper returned, but more refined than before. If nothing changes, maybe nothing will. That's how despair usually enters. Not with force, but with patience. And Daniel felt it beginning to sink in again. But something inside him resisted faster this time. Because now he remembered what he had forgotten for so long. He was not fighting for victory. He was standing on it. And that's when the next scripture rose in his spirit like steel being drawn from fire. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, Isaiah 54 verse 17. He didn't just think it. He felt it differently now. Because earlier, he would read it as comfort. Now he understood it as confrontation. The verse was not saying weapons wouldn't appear. It was saying they would fail. And Daniel suddenly realized something that changed the way he saw everything he had been going through. The attacks were not proof of defeat. They were proof that something in him was threatening enough to be targeted. And that meant heaven had already marked his life as significant. But understanding truth is one thing. Standing in it is another. Because the pressure didn't stop. In fact, it intensified. Old memories resurfaced, mistakes, regrets, moments he thought he had forgotten. The enemy wasn't inventing new lies now. He was replaying old ones. You've failed before. You'll fail again. You always end up here. And Daniel felt something dangerous rising in him again. Not fear this time. Exhaustion. The kind that makes you want to stop believing because believing feels like fighting without rest. But right at the edge of collapse, something broke through the mental fog. Not a new thought. A remembrance. A revelation deeper than emotion. The cross. And everything shifted. Because Isaiah 54 verse 17 wasn't just a promise. It was anchored in a greater reality. Nothing formed against a life covered by God has the final say. Not failure. Not accusation. Not history. And suddenly, Daniel stopped trying to interpret his situation. He started standing in a different identity. Not survivor. Not struggler. But protected. Covered. Authorized. And something in the unseen realm reacted violently to that realization. Because agreement had changed. But the final test was still coming. And this one would not attack his mind. It would attack his identity in front of everything he feared losing. The world. Daniel didn't see it coming at first. It started subtly. A situation where his past mistakes were mentioned again. A moment where he felt exposed. A conversation that made him feel smaller than before. And suddenly, shame tried to return, but this time dressed as memory. You're not qualified. You shouldn't speak about faith. You're not who you pretend to be. And for a split second, Daniel almost believed it again. Almost. Until something inside him rose. Not emotional, but unshakable. And then he remembered the final scripture. The one the enemy never wants a believer to understand fully. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, Revelation 12 verse 11. This wasn't just encouragement anymore. This was warfare explained. Victory was not based on perfection. It was based on blood and testimony. Not performance. Not reputation. Blood that speaks louder than accusation. And testimony that turns pain into evidence of defeat for the enemy. Daniel stood still. And for the first time, he stopped trying to hide his story. Because he realized something powerful. Silence protects shame, but testimony destroys it. So he spoke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But truthfully. I should have broken, but I didn't. I should have given up, but I didn't. I should have lost my mind, but I'm still here. And as he spoke, something shifted, not in his surroundings, but in his spirit. Because every testimony is a reminder to darkness of a battle it already lost. The enemy doesn't fear perfect people. He fears redeemed ones who remember. And in that moment, Daniel understood the deepest truth of everything he had been walking through. The battle was never about destroying him. It was about silencing him. Because a silent believer is a harmless believer. But a speaking believer becomes a weapon. And now Daniel wasn't silent anymore. He was aware. He was grounded. He was awake. And the final realization hit him like a wave that doesn't destroy, but awakens. Every scripture he had spoken wasn't just defending him. It was shaping him. Luke 10 verse 19, gave him authority. James 4 verse 7, taught him surrender. 2 Timothy 1 verse 7, restored his mind. Isaiah 54 verse 17, secured his protection. Revelation 12 verse 11, activated his victory. 5 truths. 5 weapons. 1 identity restored. And in that moment, Daniel finally understood. The enemy never feared him. He feared what he would become once he remembered who he was in God. The room was still quiet. But it wasn't the same silence anymore. This silence wasn't oppression. It was peace after war. Not because the battle never existed. But because it no longer had authority. Daniel looked up, not because everything in life was perfect. But because something inside him was no longer lost. And somewhere beyond what he could see, it felt like darkness itself had stopped pushing back. Not because it won. But because it realized it no longer had anything left to claim. And now the question wasn't whether the enemy was real. It was whether Daniel would live like someone already victorious. Because the word wasn't just something he read anymore. It was something he carried. Something he spoke. Something that spoke through him. And that changed everything. If this message reached you in your own silence, in your own thoughts, in your own battles you never told anyone about. Remember this. You are not fighting for victory. You are fighting from it. And when the word is in your mouth, even darkness has to listen. This is Light Up Faith. And if you're ready to stop surviving and start standing, don't just hear this message, carry it. The silence that night didn't feel peaceful. It felt wrong. Like something invisible was watching Daniel breathe, waiting for the exact moment his thoughts would break. He sat at the edge of his room, staring at the floor, but the real war wasn't in front of him. It was inside him. A storm of thoughts crashing without mercy. You're not strong enough. You're falling behind. God is silent because he's done with you. Daniel pressed his hands against his head, trying to shut it out, but the more he fought, the louder it became. And then something changed. Not outside. Inside. A thought appeared that didn't feel like his own. You were never taught how to fight back. He froze. Because deep down, he knew it was true. He believed in God. He went to church. He prayed when things got hard. But he had forgotten something dangerous. He had forgotten how to use the word like a weapon. And that's when everything began to shift. Because the enemy doesn't always destroy people with violence. Sometimes, he destroys them with silence. With distraction. With forgetting. And Daniel had forgotten the one thing that made him dangerous. Scripture. Not as comfort. But as authority. And in that moment, something unseen reacted. Like darkness realizing something it thought was asleep, had just opened its eyes. The first attack came instantly. Identity. Because if you don't know who you are, you will accept anything spoken over you. And that's when it hit him like fire breaking through fog. Look, I have given you authority over all the power of the enemy, Luke 10 verse 19. At first, he didn't even whisper it. He just sat there, staring, like the words were too heavy to carry. Authority. Over everything attacking him. It didn't feel real. But the more he sat with it, the more something inside him started resisting the fear instead of absorbing it. So he spoke it. Quietly. Almost unsure. And the moment his voice carried those words into the room, something shifted in the atmosphere. Not emotionally. Spiritually. Like something invisible stepped back. Because fear only survives where authority is forgotten. And Daniel had just remembered. But the battle never ends at recognition. It escalates. Because the enemy doesn't leave when you wake up. He adjusts. And now the pressure changed shape. It became temptation. Not obvious. Subtle. Thoughts that sounded reasonable. You don't need to go deeper with God right now. You're tired, just delay obedience. You can handle this on your own. And Daniel felt it. The pull. The confusion. The internal split between what he knew and what he felt. Until another scripture cut through the noise like lightning splitting a dark sky. Submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. James 4 verse 7. And suddenly, something became painfully clear. He had been resisting without submitting. Fighting without surrendering. Struggling while still holding control. And that was why nothing was changing. So for the first time, he didn't try to fix anything. He stopped negotiating with his fear. And simply said, God, I submit. No emotion. No performance. Just surrender. And the room felt different instantly. Not lighter. Stronger. Because submission doesn't make you weak. It places you under true authority. And something in the unseen world reacted violently to that alignment. Because now Daniel wasn't just resisting darkness. He was standing under a higher kingdom. But darkness doesn't retreat easily. It shifts again. And this time, it went for the mind. Anxiety hit like a flood. Thoughts racing faster than he could control. What if you fail again? What if nothing changes? What if this is who you always are? And his chest tightened. His breathing broke. For a moment, it felt like he was losing himself inside his own thoughts. Until another voice rose, not louder, but deeper. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1 verse 7. Something in that verse didn't just comfort him. It confronted him. Because fear wasn't just something happening to him. It was something he had been agreeing with. And now he stopped agreeing. He spoke it. Not as hope. As truth. Power, love, sound mind. Each word felt like rebuilding something that fear had been tearing down for months. And slowly, the noise began to lose structure. Fear didn't disappear. It lost authority. Because fear cannot rule a mind that refuses agreement. And in that moment, Daniel realized something terrifying and beautiful at the same time. The battle was never about how strong the enemy was. It was about whether he remembered the weapons he already had. But the war was far from over. Because now the enemy had a new target. Not his mind. Not his emotions. But his future. And what came next would test whether he would stand on promise. Or collapse under pressure. Because what he doesn't realize is that God is not rejecting him. God is breaking him. Not to destroy him. But to remove everything that would destroy him later. Pride that would make him fall. Ego that would blind him. Comfort that would weaken him. And illusions that made him think he was strong on his own. Because God never builds destiny on human confidence. He builds it on surrendered brokenness. And the man doesn't understand it yet. But heaven is about to rewrite everything he thought he knew about pain. There is a moment in Scripture where God reveals this pattern over and over again, not as theory, but as lived reality. Moses did not walk into purpose through comfort. He was broken in a desert for 40 years, stripped of palace identity, stripped of influence, stripped of everything that made him somebody in Egypt. 40 years of silence. 40 years of obscurity. 40 years of becoming nothing, so God could finally become everything. And when Moses finally returns, he doesn't return as a prince. He returns as a broken man carrying divine authority. And the same pattern repeats again and again. Joseph dreams of greatness, but instead of a throne, he gets a pit. Instead of applause, he gets betrayal. Instead of promotion, he gets prison. And every step feels like contradiction. How can this be God's plan, if everything is falling apart? But prison is not the end of Joseph. It is the shaping of him. Because God had to break the version of Joseph that couldn't carry Egypt. The immature dreamer had to die. So the wise ruler could be born. And then there is David. Anointed as king as a young man, but not sent to a palace. Sent to caves. Sent to isolation. Sent to run for his life. Imagine the confusion. You anointed me, but now I'm hiding. And yet, those caves were not punishment. They were preparation. Because anyone can rule with a crown. But only a broken man can rule without becoming prideful. God was not delaying David's throne. He was breaking David's heart until only dependence remained. Because God cannot entrust glory to a man still full of himself. And the man in our story, he starts to feel it now. The breaking is not random. It is intentional. It is surgical. It is precise. Because God is removing everything that would compete with him. And then the breaking goes deeper. Not just external loss, but internal collapse. The moment when strength no longer works. The moment when prayers feel empty. The moment when faith feels like it is cracking under pressure. And that is when God begins to reveal a law most people never understand. Breaking is not punishment, it is preparation for weight. Because glory has weight. Purpose has weight. Calling has weight. And what is unbroken cannot carry it. So God does something strange. He allows the collapse of what the man depended on. Money becomes unstable. People become unreliable. confidence becomes fragile. And self-reliance slowly dies. Until one truth remains, uncomfortable but undeniable. I can't do this alone. And that is the first true prayer God answers. Not with rescue, but with surrender. Because the breaking is not meant to end the man. It is meant to end the illusion that he ever needed anything but God. And now the story turns deeper. Because Scripture shows this pattern is not just history. It is design. Jacob wrestles with God all night. He fights for control. He fights for blessing. He fights for his future. But by morning, something is different. He walks away with a limp. A permanent reminder that he did not win by strength, but by surrender. And strangely, that limp becomes his identity. Because God had to break Jacob's self-sufficiency to reveal his true dependence. I can't walk like I used to. And that is exactly the point. Because the man who walks differently, walks with God more closely. And the broken man in our story begins to realize something terrifying and beautiful at the same time. Every loss was not random. Every delay was not rejection. Every closed door was not abandonment. It was God removing what could not go into the next season. But the breaking is not finished yet. Because there is a deeper layer God still needs to touch. Character. And character is not built in comfort. It is forged in pressure. It is refined in injustice. It is tested in silence. Just like Joseph, falsely accused, forgotten, overlooked. And yet, something inside him changes in that darkness. He stops being just a dreamer. He becomes stable. Steady. Mature. Ready. Because when he finally stands before Pharaoh, there is no bitterness in him, only wisdom. No pride, only clarity. No desperation, only readiness. And Pharaoh sees it instantly. This is not a broken prisoner. This is a man prepared by something greater than prison. And that is the secret God has been working all along. Brokenness is not the end of usefulness. It is the beginning of authority. But the man still doesn't fully see it. Because pain has a way of feeling personal, even when it is spiritual. And so he cries out again in silence. God, how much more do I have to lose? And heaven responds not with explanation, but with process. Because some things cannot be explained. They must be formed. And just when it feels like nothing is left, God begins to reveal the hidden truth behind every breaking. He is not breaking the man's life. He is breaking what cannot go with him into destiny. Pride must break. Fear must break.